Okay, if you're watching this video, you should have already finished reading All Aboard Elijah McCoy's Steam Engine. And as you were reading, I really hope that you stopped and answered each of these questions that were in the thinking bubble. Okay? So if you didn't, you do need to go back and do that. That's a very important part of every story. So if you didn't, go ahead and press pause, go back and do that. Here's another one. We want to look for answers in our story as we do that. And then we're going to talk about the questions that are at the end. And we're actually going to do your turn workbook page together. So go ahead and get your turn workbook page and a pencil and open it to page 32. If you need to go ahead and if you need to press pause, then go ahead and do that. So we're going to complete this chart. All right, and I have filled in the first side for you. Cause and effect. The effect of one thing can be the cause of something new. So let's go ahead and let's look at these. So let's see, the cause. First, here are some of our transition words: next, then, and then finally. So in this story, we're going to kind of retell the story, and we're going to look at it through the lens of having causes, what the cause was and what the effect was. So first, Elijah's parents saved money for him to go to school. What is the effect? Because he saved money, what happened? Okay, so because they saved money, the effect was he went to school in Scotland. And that was from the story. And you can write that in. Okay. And if you need to press pause, go ahead and do that. Okay, next, Elijah needs a job and he likes engines. Okay, so he needs a job, he likes engines. The effect was hopefully you guys are thinking, take a second. If you remember, he takes a difficult job with the railroad. And hopefully your writing is much nicer. Remember, you have a pencil, I have a computer mouse. Okay, then the engines ran out of oil. So when the engines ran out of oil, what was the effect? So then Elijah, what did he have to do? He had to keep stopping. So the train kept stopping. That was one effect. But Elijah had to keep stopping. He had to keep oiling or stopping. He had to keep stopping. Let me put stopping in here. Stopping to oil the engines. Okay, so that is an effect of that. All right. Then finally, Elijah designed an oil cup to keep the engine oiled. So what was the effect of that? The effect was trains were safer, they were faster, and Elijah became famous. Oops. Okay, so when we're talking about cause and effect, that is what we're talking about. Okay, there are lots of clouds in the sky. That could be a cause. The effect was everybody brought raincoats and umbrellas to the picnic because there were clouds in the sky. So there can be a cause and effect with everything. And since we're on together, we might as well go ahead and answer the text evidence questions together as well. So text evidence, texts are the written words and evidence is proof, okay? So which features tell you that All Aboard is a biography? So how do we know that All Aboard is a biography? Okay, hopefully you're all thinking of some answers. Okay, the answer is the author gives details about Elijah McCoy's life. So that tells us that it's a biography, because a biography is a story of somebody's life. And the evidence of that, so evidence is, how do you prove that? Okay, you can tell me that the story is giving details, but you have to prove it if I'm asking for evidence. And the evidence would be that the story is about Elijah McCoy. He was a real person whose inventions did help make train travel safer and faster. Number 2, what caused Elijah McCoy to invent the oil cup? Okay, this is a simple just recall question. So this should be easy because especially we just went over it in our chart. So Elijah invented the oil cup while working to keep trains running. The trains had to stop a lot because their engines, remember, had to be oiled because the parts would be running together and they would get too hot. So he also wanted to keep the people who had to run under the train, and which were a lot of times little kids, he wanted to keep them safe. And the evidence of that was that Elijah really did invent an oil cup. Right, a metaphor. We talked about metaphors, or are going to talk about metaphors this week, where a metaphor is a comparison. When you compare two things and you do not use like or as, that is a metaphor. So it says on page 80, what two things does the author compare? So let's look for the metaphor. Perfect. Which one's page 80? Over here. It says, what a letdown. Elijah knew engines inside and out. He knew how to design them. He knew how to build them. He also knew the boss didn't think much of him because he was black. But Elijah needed work, so he took the job. The steam locomotive was exciting. People called it the Iron Horse. It was a fire-breathing monster. So right here is our metaphor. What are the two things they're comparing? The train and a fire-breathing monster. Okay, so because we didn't use like or as and we said it was a fire-breathing monster, that makes it a metaphor. It's a simile, if you remember from last year, if you use like or as. So if I said the train is like a fire-breathing monster, then it would be a simile. But since they didn't use those, then it is a metaphor. And those are really great to use in your writing. I love when people use descriptions in their writing that are similes or metaphors. It really helps you get a better picture in your head when that happens. So hopefully we'll see that in some of your writing. All right, so we will stop there. Okay, I hope you guys really enjoyed this story. This is a part of history that we're going to be learning about this year, when the railroads started and how it helped people travel faster and helped our country expand. And that'll be a little later this year.